from Vegas. Oh, really?
You should watch your mouth.
Bitch, prostitute. You were from Vegas.
You know something's gone terribly wrong when the last image the world sees of you is at an airport, crying into a suitcase, whispering, "I can't believe this is how it ends." No camera crew, no glam, no goodbye post, just a woman, devastated, defeated, and deported. Jasmine Pineda wasn't just leaving America. Her entire dream shattered into pieces right there on the cold airport floor. And the silence? That hit even harder. One minute she's the firecracker of 90 Day Fiancé. The next, her socials go dark, her scenes get erased, and every trace of her is scrubbed from TLC's future. No farewell special, no tell-all, just blackout. Fans were left guessing. Was it a legal issue? A personal breakdown? A behind-the-scenes blow-up? Or all of the above? Back in Panama, Jasmine wasn't giving interviews. She wasn't posting selfies. She reportedly wouldn't even respond to friends. All people knew, from shaky fan footage and muted airport clips, was that she was gone, and the smile that had once pulled millions to their screens was gone with her. What the cameras never showed is what happened off-screen. The buildup of quiet betrayals. The backstage edits that twisted emotions into caricature. The legal threats. The overnight lawsuit. The final betrayal not from the network, but from the man she crossed countries to marry. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a takedown. She started as a fiery, complicated, deeply emotional woman in love. She ended up silenced, deported, and haunted by a breadcrumb trail of receipts, recordings, court filings, and crisis. But it wasn't just heartbreak. It was a setup. And everything Jasmine built, her love, her lifestyle, her future, was about to be buried in a $70,000 betrayal. When Jasmine stepped onto the 90 Day Fiancé stage, she didn't just join the cast, she took over the moment. In a sea of cautious couples and played-out narratives, she showed up raw, hyper-emotional, painfully insecure, and proudly outspoken. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She was trying to hold on to a love story that already had cracks by the time the cameras rolled. And that made her magnetic. Her intensity with Gino turned into content gold. From jealous outbursts to teary confessions, their chemistry was unpredictable, and TLC leaned in hard. Every breakdown was a trailer. Every argument was a rating spike. She became TV's favorite meltdown. But behind the scenes, Jasmine was starting to feel boxed in. The real her, funny, affectionate, even self-aware, was being cropped out. Gino, meanwhile, played the calm foil, the awkward tech guy with his cap collection and deadpan expressions. But it wasn't just opposites attract. Over time, Jasmine began noticing something that changed everything. When a fight got out of hand, or when emotions ran high, Gino didn't protect her. He didn't correct the narrative. He stepped back. She'd tell producers, "They're twisting what I said." And they'd smile politely. She'd cry to Gino about looking crazy, and he'd say, "Don't worry, babe. People know it's just TV." But people didn't. They believed what they saw, and what they saw was a ticking time bomb in lashes and lip gloss. As Jasmine's popularity grew, so did her vulnerability. Fans obsessed over her outbursts. Reddit threads dissected her facial expressions. But no one seemed to wonder why she was reacting that way. The edits framed chaos. They cut context. Whole conversations were reduced to a single glare or rolling eyes. What started off as exposure quickly began to feel like exploitation. And TLC handled it like a formula. Jasmine brings the drama, Gino absorbs it, viewers stay hooked. Easy math. But for Jasmine, the real cost wasn't known until much later. She noticed producers pushing certain questions, asking her to repeat lines with more emotion, encouraging her reactions. Because the bigger the explosion, the bigger the payoff. It wasn't accidental. It was packaged. She'd finished filming, watched the episodes later, and barely recognized herself. The real hurt came not from her worst moments being aired, but from her best ones being deleted. She once said in a leaked message to a friend, "I gave them everything. My heart, my story, my truth, and they only kept the noise." By season 3, Jasmine wasn't just frustrated. She was nervous. She started asking for control over how she was shown, how she was paid, how her footage was used. And that's when the cracks deepened off camera. TLC didn't like talent getting too smart. And Gino? He didn't push back on her behalf. He stayed out of it. Some say he was scared to lose his own deal. Others say he quietly sided with the network long before Jasmine knew. But what happened when the camera stopped shattered more than her public image. It started with a few screenshots. Private messages Jasmine allegedly sent to a friend, fuming over her paycheck. One of them detailed how little she was making per episode. Another hinted at payment delays. And then came the one that flipped everything upside down. It showed Jasmine talking about production secrets, shoot schedules, behind-the-scenes manipulation, even how certain scenes were staged. It wasn't just venting. It was damage. Within a week, those DMs were everywhere. Fan pages were reposting them, gossip channels were breaking them down line by line, and suddenly, Jasmine wasn't just dramatic. She became a liability. A few days later, a civil lawsuit was filed in Michigan court. Gino Palazzolo was now suing Jasmine for $70,000 in damages, claiming defamation, breach of confidentiality, and unauthorized disclosure of production information. People were confused. Since when had Gino become the one filing lawsuits? But then whispers started circling that this wasn't his idea. Insiders claimed TLC's legal team had quietly stepped in. Gino didn't serve Jasmine out of anger. He was approached behind closed doors, warned his own contract renewal was on the line, and given a script, either protect the network or lose everything. So he signed. And Jasmine found out after the fact that lawsuit wasn't just a relationship ender. It triggered something darker. Jasmine's entire life in America was held together by her fiancé visa. And once Gino turned on her in court, her status started to crack. Immigration saw the lawsuit and flagged her file. Her visa, which depended on a future marriage to Gino, now had a legal bomb under it. And Jasmine? She didn't even know it was coming. Behind closed doors, damage control had already started. Emails between TLC producers leaked later that month, shedding new light on what was really going on. One executive wrote, "We need to protect the asset." The asset wasn't Jasmine. It was Gino. Another warned, "She's emotionally spiraling. If she talks to press, we shift the story before it gets out of hand." There were no talks of support, no concern for Jasmine's mental health, just strategy. Meanwhile, Jasmine was spiraling, privately, not on camera. She allegedly reached out to 2 former cast members for help, asking if this was normal. One told her, "You're done. Once they turn on you, you become the problem they claim to be fixing." She was labeled unstable, difficult, possibly mentally unfit, all without any diagnosis. The same tears producers once encouraged were now being framed as signs she wasn't safe to keep on air. People forget, this wasn't a Hollywood actress with a team of lawyers. This was a woman new to the country, on a visa tied to the very person who'd now legally distanced himself from her. She knew the network had power, but it was Gino's betrayal that gutted her the most. This wasn't she said, he said. This was she trusted. He signed. And behind one signed document was the ending Jasmine never saw coming. It was early morning when the knock came. Jasmine was in Michigan, staying at the apartment she once shared with Gino. The relationship had already cracked into pieces, but she hadn't left yet. She couldn't. Her immigration status depended on it. So when police officers showed up at the door, The neighbors assumed it was another 90-day segment being filmed. It wasn't. This wasn't scripted. It was real. According to local reports, a noise complaint had been filed. A domestic disturbance, they called it. But those closest to her believe her name was already flagged by then. The stress of the lawsuit, the tensions with Gino, and behind it all, the whispers swirling inside TLC. Jasmine had started asking too many questions, wanting too much control. She wasn't being dramatic anymore. She was being inconvenient. The arrest didn't last. It wasn't a full charge, more procedural than criminal. But the humiliation clung to her like air. Someone filmed cell phone footage of her being escorted out in slippers with no makeup, hair tied back, face swollen with panic. The same woman once framed as fierce and fiery on national TV now looked like a shell of that character. She was trembling, distraught, screaming at no one in particular, "You all used me. You all ruined me." Within hours, that video was trending in fan circles online. Fan pages picked it up. So did small gossip channels. TLC's legal team acted fast, reportedly issuing warnings to any page that reshared the footage. They scrambled to get it taken down. But it was too late. The damage was done. Everyone had seen Jasmine off the script in freefall. And TLC knew it. Inside production emails leaked months later. One producer wrote, "If she breaks down in public, we say she was always unwell. Blame the instability. We don't take the hit." And just like that, Jasmine became a liability in their narrative too. Her mental health wasn't something to protect. It was a storyline to shift. TLC cast her as unpredictable from the beginning, so her real panic, her real cries, didn't feel out of place to the viewers. They felt like season finale material. But what fans didn't know was that behind every breakdown Jasmine had on screen, there was an off-screen moment no one saw her trying to pull herself together after producers told her to go back and say it louder for a better take. She wasn't acting. She was reacting. A former assistant producer from the show who later broke ranks anonymously described Jasmine as someone who absorbed the entire environment like a sponge. Every comment, every glare, every note from a crew member, she took it personally. They kept pushing her, the crew member wrote. But when she stopped being useful, when she got scared, when she was begging to be seen off camera, it was crickets. Another clip that leaked weeks later showed Jasmine off stage at a tell-all, emotionally pleading with a staffer to be taken off the show's next season. "They don't care if I'm okay," she reportedly said. "They only care if I cry on cue." But her request was denied. She had already signed off for another round of filming. The ENDA, the contracts, the episode guarantees, they boxed her in. She couldn't speak out. Anything she said about production could lead to legal blowback. Anything she shared about Gino was now fuel for the very lawsuit she was trying to fight. So, she went quiet. But inside, she was breaking. People who knew Jasmine say that, after the detainment, she isolated. Turned off her phone, disappeared from group chats, stopped eating regularly. There were reports she started sleeping during the day, staying up all night. She told one friend she kept hearing sound bites from the show in her head. A producer saying, "More tears, more tension." Another saying, "Jasmine, you're gold when you're mad." She once wrote in her notes, "I don't know who I am without someone else's edit." This wasn't a meltdown. It was mental erosion, slow and disturbed. Not by one event, by many, all adding up. And no one stepped in to fix it. Gino wasn't responding. TLC wasn't guiding. She had gone from high-value star to what they now treated as a reputational risk. The same network that once flew her across borders couldn't send a welfare check. Couldn't even issue a real public statement. And the public? The same people who watched every breakdown in real time began to call her crazy, unstable, manipulative. They used words Jasmine had read in scripts before. Words suggested during confessionals. She even claimed those words were planted, so when she snapped, it wasn't sudden. But no breakdown happens overnight, and Jasmine was quietly kept one panic attack away from the edit room floor. The first thing fans noticed was the silence. Not the dramatic kind, not unfollowing someone or posting cryptic quotes. Real silence. Jasmine's Instagram account went completely dark. No stories. No selfies. The comments were eventually turned off, and anything that hinted at her emotional state vanished overnight. Nobody knew if it was her choice or someone else's. That was the red flag. Because for Jasmine, silence was never her brand. Whether she was fighting with Gino, posting emotional captions, or flexing full glam mode, she kept her audience close. But this time, it was different. There were no goodbye posts, no explanations, no drama to keep everyone watching, just absence. And if you've watched reality TV long enough, you know silence is the sound bad things make when the lawyers get involved. Then Gino started acting weird too. He didn't release a statement, no comment on the lawsuit, no mention of Jasmine. But what he was doing spoke louder than any caption could. His socials were pruned. Instagram photos with Jasmine were slowly deleted or buried. Comments that questioned him were removed. Questions about her disappearance were left unanswered. Then came the rebrands. Suddenly, Gino was resharing fitness pages, talking about starting over, posting alone. He even changed his bio to something vague, like building my new life brick by brick. For someone neck deep in a visa scandal and lawsuit, he looked suspiciously calm. Meanwhile, TLC's only public comment came through a spokesperson. TLC values the privacy and well-being of all its cast members. We do not comment on legal or ongoing personal matters. One sentence. Clean and empty. That statement said everything and nothing. Fans weren't buying it. Online forums lit up. Reddit threads turned investigative. Why was Jasmine gone? But Gino still being quietly promoted by fan pages affiliated with the network. Why was his scene still included in the upcoming teaser when hers had clearly been edited out? And why were there now rumors that TLC had offered Gino a short-term deal for a spin-off without her? One blogger who claimed to be tipped off by someone on set posted a now-deleted message alleging Gino was offered a contract extension if he cooperated during the legal fallout with Jasmine. No proof, but the pattern made sense. Jasmine disappears. Gino retreats, reemerges, and quietly restarts his arc. Alone. And this is where things got suspicious. Why Gino? Let's be honest. He wasn't the breakout star. He wasn't the fan favorite. His personality was subtle, sometimes even awkward. What made him relevant was Jasmine. Her fire made his calm interesting. Her chaos made his lines memorable. So why keep him and lose her? Some fans think the reason's simple. Control. Gino never tried to fight back, never questioned producers, never asked for creative input. He played the script, kept quiet, and when the pressure came, he chose them over Jasmine. And in TV, loyalty pays. Others say there's more to the story, that Jasmine's alleged leaks about payment structures and behind-the-scenes edits forced the network into cleanup mode. Not just to protect the brand, but protect the contracts. If Jasmine was allowed to speak freely, it would open the floodgates, undermining not just one season, but the formula TLC's built success on for years. Emotionally unstable woman, emotionally unavailable man, and never enough truth for anyone to feel safe. By the time fans started asking where Jasmine went, TLC had already locked the doors behind her. That's what made the silence so loud. What happened wasn't just a breakup. It was an erasure. And what followed slowly confirmed it. Jasmine's posts were never restored. Verified fan pages posted tribute edits calling her complex and misunderstood, implying she might never return to TV. Meanwhile, Gino kept softly leaning into the spin-off rumors. No outright denial, just liking the right comments. Posing for shots with vague captions like "Next Chapter Unlocked." A former cast coordinator later told a gossip columnist that Jasmine was never supposed to last more than one season. That her longevity on the show was a surprise even to producers. But once she began asking for more transparency, more control, more protection, she became difficult. And on reality TV, difficult doesn't get rescued. It gets deleted. Still, fans weren't done asking. How did Gino walk away clean? Why did TLC back him even halfway when it was Jasmine who made their story compelling? What happened behind the curtain, between the final taping and the courtroom filing? No one answered. No one officially said Jasmine broke her contract. No one produced proof she leaked anything. Gino never confirmed the bonus. TLC never confirmed the spinoff. But Gino had something Jasmine didn't. Quiet compliance. And when silence works in your favor, it becomes a business strategy. Some believe Gino didn't just walk away unscathed. He walked away upgraded. And that's what made Jasmine's disappearance feel less like a fallout and more like a removal. Was Gino's silence part of the deal? Or the price of fame? It started as a whisper, comments on Reddit, quiet speculation in fan discords. A few people claimed there were voice notes, real ones. Not clips from the show, but personal audio messages recorded by Jasmine herself during her final weeks in America. At first, it sounded like rumors, but then a Dropbox link appeared in a locked Facebook group. No context, no label, no signature. Just a folder titled Jasmine Raw. Inside were multiple audio files. Low quality, shaky, some clearly mid-panic, and one, in particular, broke the internet. In that recording, Jasmine's voice is barely holding together. Puffy, breathless, cracking between words. They took everything. My home, my love, my career. I gave the best of me when no one was pretending. And they turned that into a joke. Her voice hits a breaking point halfway through. They told me to cry harder. They said it was good for trailers. They said say it again, but crazier? And I didn't know I was letting them break me in real time. No music, no edits, no reaction cuts. Her pain was no longer background noise for entertainment. It was undressed, raw. And it changed everything. Fan pages froze. Then they reposted it everywhere. Bloggers covered it overnight. TikToks dissected it, frame by frame, matching her pain to moments we'd all watched. Tears on a couch, yelling over dinner, hiding in bathrooms. But now, those scenes weren't just drama. They were symptoms. Another clip in the folder had Jasmine speaking directly to someone. It sounded like a producer, or at least someone from the set. She says, "You told me to fight him. You told me to scream at him, that it would be better TV. And now you're saying I'm unstable? I was performing for you." That line hit hard. Because for the first time, it wasn't Jasmine reacting in a vacuum. It was Jasmine revealing the cues. The internet turned. People who once mocked her started apologizing. Old hate threads were deleted. Viewers began questioning every breakdown, not just Jasmine's, but across other 90-day couples too. Then something odd happened. A former castmate, who had always stayed neutral, posted a veiled statement on her story. When you're told to cry and then punished for it? How is that real TV? Another one tweeted, "Jasmine wasn't crazy. She was exposed too long. No names, no networks. But the timing wasn't subtle. And it wasn't isolated." Soon, allegations began surfacing from other sides. Not lawsuits, but small stories. A male cast member who claimed producers exaggerated his anger to fit a jealous boyfriend arc. A woman from a past season who said she was shamed off camera for not being emotional enough. The receipts weren't always clean, but the pattern started looking familiar. Encouraged chaos. Punished clarity. Praised conflict. Silenced reality. Jasmine's voice notes gave that narrative a pulse. And the quote that echoed louder than them all? In a voice barely louder than a whisper, she says, "He told me he would protect me. Instead, he watched me burn." That wasn't dramatic. That wasn't oversized emotion. That was betrayal in its final form. Because whether you love or hate Jasmine on screen, what that audio proved more than anything was simple: she wasn't protected. Not in editing, not in contract, not in love. TLC didn't respond publicly, but quietly, the machine moved. Jasmine's footage from the unreleased season was reportedly removed entirely. Notices were sent to channels re-uploading the Dropbox audio. The origin of the leak was never confirmed. Was it Jasmine? A friend? A crew member with a conscience? No one knows. But few believed the timing was accidental. And here's where it gets worse. Jasmine allegedly never got paid for that audio, or for the footage now sitting in TLC's vault. According to sources close to her, she was offered a termination packet with a confidentiality clause, a 4-figure payout on the condition she never speak publicly again about anything related to filming, Gino, or the network. No press, no interviews, full erasure. In exchange, TLC would quietly stop pursuing damages. She didn't take the deal. Instead, she started documenting everything: the messages, the emails, even private therapy reflections. A digital journal nicknamed The Panama Diary by insiders. Someone close to Jasmine said she writes in it every day. And not just how she feels, what she remembers, what she was told to say, what she was told never to repeat. Meanwhile, Gino's social presence stayed pristine. He posted a photo of his dinner, another of a landscape. No reference to court. No reference to her. It looked like a feed from a guy who never walked someone through one of the ugliest public breakdowns reality TV's given us in years. And still, no comment from him on the recordings. It begs the question, what does it take for someone to hear their partner cry like that on tape and still say nothing? Fans started asking that too. Where is Gino? Became a trending question. But true to form, he gave none of the closure Jasmine couldn't stop craving. Even as more audio clips emerged, some fragments of confessional tapes, others voice memos to herself, each one built toward a strange kind of grief. Not for a breakup, or even a lost career, but for the emotional integrity Jasmine believed reality TV would preserve. In those clips, it becomes clear. She thought love was protection. She thought the show would celebrate her authenticity. She thought, at the end of it all, the person she trusted most would defend her when the edits became too cruel. Instead, her face became a brand. Her breakdowns became a business, and her silence became cheaper than her story. And when your voice is erased, sometimes the raw truth fights its way out. The decision came fast. Faster than even Jasmine expected. Her appeal to stay in the U.S. was denied. No backup plan, no extended timeline, no loophole left to crawl through. Her visa wasn't just expired, it was invalid, with the person who once vouched for her now suing her for damages. When the papers arrived, Jasmine didn't scream or post or fight back online. She packed a single suitcase, booked a one-way ticket, and disappeared from the algorithm. The final image of her, in America, didn't come from a production shoot. It came from a stranger's phone. A fan who happened to be at Detroit Metro Airport recognized her immediately. No glam, no luggage beyond the essentials. Just Jasmine, in oversized sunglasses, trying to hold it together as she approached the gate. When she looked around and noticed someone filming, she didn't react big or cause a scene like some might expect. She just turned away and whispered, almost to herself, "I can't believe this is how it ends." There were no producers on hand to wrap the moment. No dramatic score playing in the background. No signature TLC-style flashes. The chaos had already played out. And now, Jasmine stood alone in the quiet that follows. Sources back in Panama shared that she barely spoke to anyone at first. She returned to her family's home and reportedly stayed in her room for days. No social media, no calls, no interviews. Just sleep, tears, and silence. One friend later told a Spanish-language outlet that she had been experiencing heavy panic episodes, sometimes afraid to even turn on the TV out of fear her own face would appear. TLC never acknowledged her departure outside of that one-line statement from months back about respecting privacy. The same network that had once printed Jasmine's breakdowns into gold now had zero interest in her recovery. Jasmine's representatives, if she had any left by then, never released a comment. And interview offers flooded in, from podcasts, gossip blogs, even YouTuber ex-boss offering payment. She declined them all. Every last one. But privately, she was documenting. It was a quiet mission. No hashtag justice, no hashtag Team Jasmine movement launched by her. But someone close to her leaked that Jasmine had started archiving everything. Notes, emails, therapy summaries, even scribbled memories of what producers asked her to say. Promises she believed, lines she regretted. It wasn't for the court or social media. It was for the diary. They're calling it the Panama Diary now. Not because she's publishing it, she legally can't. Not yet. But because those who've seen parts of it say it reads like a blueprint of every manipulation she felt trapped in. Not just about the show, but about love. About what it meant to build your future around someone else's approval, both a man's signature and a network script. It's more than trauma dumping. She is, according to insiders, writing with clarity. Anger, yes, but also reflection. She admitted to pushing too hard sometimes, to reacting in ways that didn't help her case. But the diary makes one thing clear. She feels she was primed for collapse. And the safety net that should have caught her, if not from love, then from labor, was never there. She once wrote, "When I stopped producing what they wanted, they treated me like a liability instead of a person." That line reportedly repeats across different entries, and as unreleased voice notes continue to surface in pieces, you can track that unraveling. The growing distance from Gino, the suffocation of powerlessness, the slow dawning that she'd become both spectacle and scapegoat. Yet no official apology, no compensation, no attempt to repair what was broken. Gino moved on, re-emerging online like nothing happened. TLC forged ahead, pushing new seasons with fresh couples. Jasmine vanished, all while her story remained half-told. But absence doesn't erase impact. And silence doesn't mean surrender. Because as much as her dramatic moments defined the franchise for a time, it's her exit that's left the deepest imprint. The questions she now embodies haunt the entire reality TV format. How far is too far? Who protects the people on screen when the story arc turns into a real-life trauma? We finally see what it looks like when love, ambition, and betrayal all explode in silence. But the final chapter doesn't close when a plane takes off. It begins when no one's watching. Back in Panama, life isn't fast, glamorous, or loud. It's simple. The streets she grew up around are quieter than set lights. The days move slower than cue cards and shot lists. And buried within that stillness, Jasmine is trying to pick up what's left of her own story. She's reportedly teaching English now, volunteering with a local women's program in the city. Her schedule no longer revolves around camera calls or confessionals, just classrooms and community. There's something poetic in the fact that she's back to teaching others how to use their voice after hers was silenced so methodically. But the scars haven't faded. You can hear them, not see them. In one of her only post-deportation interviews, a soft, low-budget YouTube piece, filmed in a basic living room, Jasmine stares directly into the camera and speaks plainly. No performance, no makeup, no shock value. I don't want revenge, she says. I want my voice back. Her tone is calm, not bitter, not angry, tired. Like someone who begged to be heard so many times she no longer feels the need to shout about it. That interview hit differently. Not because of what she said, but how she said it. The Jasmine viewers remembered, fiery, impulsive, explosive, wasn't trying to come back. She had no grand entrance, no viral reveal. Just a whisper of truth in a world that only tuned in for loud. Fans were divided. Some flooded the video with apologies. Others still clung to the image of the unstable girlfriend TLC had sold them for seasons. But what was most shocking in that fragile interview wasn't Jasmine's reflection on the show. It was what she said about Gino. I don't hate him, she explained. I pity him. He'll never know what real love feels like because he gave it up for protection and paychecks. That statement wasn't meant to wound. It was a eulogy. For her trust, for their love, for the things she'd spent years trying to defend. She wasn't mourning the end of a relationship. She was mourning who she had to become to be seen. Gino, meanwhile, has stayed silent. No rebuttal, no public denial, no reaction to the voice recordings. He did show up briefly in another fan's photo, standing alone outside a small bar in Michigan, hood up, head down. Some say that's guilt. Others say it's indifference. Jasmine no longer guesses. That's where the real shift happened. When Jasmine stopped explaining, stopped reacting, stopped chasing accountability. She let the silence hang. But this time, it was on her terms. It brings us to something bigger than a breakup. Because if Jasmine's story feels uniquely painful, it's worth asking, why do we keep seeing versions of it play out again and again on reality television? What happens when real people mix with fake drama and there's no therapist on set? What happens when emotional trauma is used as a plot device, but psychological support is off budget? When an immigrant partner is shipped in for the sake of chemistry and then left stranded when the storyline expires? The cost isn't always visible, but it's real. And Jasmine, whether knowingly or not, has become the loudest silence in that system. Reality fame doesn't come with life insurance. It doesn't come with a safety net. Especially if you weren't born on the side of the contract with power. Jasmine's mistake wasn't loving too hard, but trusting the script would protect her heart. And fans, yes, even well-meaning ones, were part of it too. The ones who shared the clips for laughs, who reposted her breakdowns, who piled on when she asked for boundaries, who applauded Gino for keeping calm, while ignoring the panic behind Jasmine's eyes. We watched it like entertainment. She lived it as her unraveling. Now, with every small interview she gives, Jasmine is reclaiming her timeline, not to go viral again, but to survive what viral cost her. And maybe that's the closure we rarely get from these stories. She isn't looking for a public apology from TLC or a final confession from Gino. She wants the opposite. No attention, no edit, just the space to quietly become human again. Without playing a role, still, fragments of her story keep slipping through. Screenshots, recovered voice notes, leaked outlines from the Panama Diary she's reportedly still writing. She's no longer trying to break NDAs or ignite scandal. But her story continues to circulate, not through official channels, but through whispers. Whispers that, ironically, now speak louder than the show that once distorted her voice. And as much as TLC might want to move on, as much as Gino may want to mute the past, the truth finds strange ways to stay alive. In digital footprints. In guilty silences. In community threads where people finally say, maybe we were wrong about her. There's something full circle about her teaching again. Starting quietly. Building others up. Not asking to be watched, but in a way, still being heard. Because silence didn't protect Gino. And it didn't protect TLC. But if silence was supposed to protect him, Why does her voice still echo louder? There is one scene from Jasmine's story that you never saw. No dramatic previews, no leaked stills, no supercut on TikTok. It was filmed quietly, away from the usual chaos, in the final days before she left America. While the legal mess with Gino was unfolding, while TLC was already editing her out of future plans, someone sat Jasmine down in front of a camera one last time and pressed record. Not for an episode, not for a tell-all, for insurance. According to people who say they were close to production at the time, this final interview was different from anything she had done on the show. No glam squad, no funny edits, no producer feeding her lines in the background. She was reportedly given a simple prompt. Talk about what happened. Talk about how you feel. Talk about Gino. Talk about the show. In that room, Jasmine knew two things. Her American dream was over. And this might be the last time she ever got to speak on record with the camera pointed at her, not through her. She did not hold back. Whispers about that footage started small. A crew member mentioning a buried tape in a private forum. A fan blogger posting that TLC had shot a final exit interview they could never air without legal fallout. No one had the full video. No one had a clean rip. But pieces of that day began leaking in other ways. Not as full scenes, but as descriptions from people who claimed to have watched it raw, before the lawyer stepped in. They say Jasmine spoke in a way the audience had never been allowed to see. No screaming, no name-calling, no exaggerated hand movements. Her voice was low, controlled, and painfully clear. She reportedly laid out timelines. Examples. Times she was pushed to react harder for the cameras. Times she felt pressured to stay with Gino on screen, even when she wanted to walk away off screen. Times when her real fear about her visa was used to raise the stakes instead of being handled with any kind of care. The most damaging part was not about the show format. It was about decisions. Who made them? Who benefited? And who had to absorb the cost? Some of the people who claim they saw that interview say she talked about Gino's lawsuit head-on. She talked about how she felt seeing his name on legal papers, how she realized he had chosen a contract and a paycheck over their relationship. According to one account, she didn't yell, she did not insult him. She simply described it as the moment love turned into paperwork. TLC, according to those same leaks, cut that line immediately from any internal cut. Because here is the problem with a confession like that. Once you air it, you lose control of the frame. Viewers stop seeing a crazy woman and start seeing a human being describing harm in a calm voice. The curtain pulls back. The magic breaks. And that is the last thing any network wants. Instead of airing it as a special or bonus clip, the footage went into a vault of unaired material that every reality show keeps. Scenes that no longer fit the version of events they want to present. Scenes that raise questions they do not want to answer. The wild part is, the one scene that could have shown Jasmine at her clearest might be the same scene that made it impossible to pretend she was the only problem. Because if you show her connecting the dots, you admit there were dots to connect. The more fans heard about this final interview, the more those scattered voice notes and leaks from the Panama Diary began to make sense. This was never about one meltdown or one fight in a hotel room. It was about a pattern built over time. A pattern where emotional pain was encouraged, then punished. Where one partner was pushed to carry the drama, while the other was given quiet immunity. Where a foreign fiancé was flown in as story fuel, then exiled once she started telling the story in her own words. And that brings us to the next problem for TLC. You can bury a video. You can shelf a tape. You can shut down reposts and send threatening emails to fan pages. But you cannot unring a bell. Once people know a final confession exists, they start searching for it. They start asking why it was never aired. They start wondering who would have been hurt the most if it did go live. Because this is a part almost nobody talks about. If Jasmine's last interview is as honest as people claim, then airing it would not only challenge TLC's image, it would also raise questions about any producer or executive who signed off on those earlier edits, any lawyer who used her mental health as a shield, any cast member who went along with the easier version of the story once the network picked a side. And it might put Gino in a spotlight he has tried very hard to avoid. In that hidden footage, people say Jasmine never once begs for him back. She does not plead. She does not bargain. She describes. And in description, there is accountability. Without insults. Without slurs. Without theatrics. She holds up a mirror. For a man who has built his entire post show presence on staying low and saying nothing, one honest mirror is more dangerous than 100 angry rants. That is why so many fans are convinced this interview was not scrapped for time or tone, but because the wrong career would have taken the hit if it reached the public. So where does that leave us? Right now, that full footage lives in rumor, in partial accounts, in secondhand retellings. But the pattern around it is real. Clips disappear when they make a network look bad. NDAs appear when someone edges too close to telling the full story. Cast members go quiet the moment they hint at off-camera pressure. And somewhere in Panama, a woman who lost her status, her job, and her public image is still piecing together a record of what happened, with no guarantee the world will ever get to see it the way she remembers. That is where my next video comes in. Because Jasmine's final confession was not just emotional, it was career-ending. Not hers, someone else's.